Yes, ladies and gentlemen, today is a very special day, a long overdue day. Back in June of 2024, a certain album turned 30 years old. Prior to the celebration, I had put out a short talking about how I was going to do a video and probably a podcast to follow on it. As you can see for my channel, it didn't come to fruition, but have no fear. We are still within that 30-year window. We're still celebrating 30 years, and we are celebrating 30 years. That's right. A Bone Thugs and Harmony's debut EP, Creepin, on the come up. And I just so happen to have that glary CD right here. So we're going to be taking a little bit of a trip down memory lane, a little bit of a review and retrospective with a hint of a story put in. So without further ado, let me put this microphone down here on the table, just like so, and let's get started with it. Very simple. This was an EP, 8-song EP released June 21st, 1994 on none other than the Godfather Gangster Rap's label, Eazy-e's label, Ruthless Records. The year was 94. This would have released in the summer prior to my freshman year of high school. I had only been listening to hip-hop and rap for a couple years there. I would say my first real foray into hip-hop was, of course, the 1992, I believe, release of Crisscross. I think that was a nice entry level for a lot of people. And then I proceeded to get into Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, Onyx, mostly focusing on the West Coast. And 1994 was certainly a time far different from the times of today. We didn't have the ability to go back, research, and figure out what was coming up. We had to rely on magazines such as The Source or Vibe to give us a breakdown of upcoming albums, or going into a record store where they would have listed releases coming out. Prior to that, I had no knowledge of who Bone Thugs and Harmony were. At this time, their video for Thuggish, Ruggish, Bone was hitting the charts, turning people on to the Bone Thugs sound, and I was oblivious of that factoid. So the story time part of this is my best friends. They were ahead of the game. I didn't get CDs until junior year of high school, maybe even closer to senior. I stuck with tapes. I didn't have the money to get a CD player at the time. I don't know the situation surrounding it, but they had broke out their CD boombox, popped it in, said, "You got to hear this. This is great." My recollection of the story is a little fuzzy. I don't know the specifics of what we were doing. I know they had a pool in their backyard, so it was probably summer. We were probably out by the pool, probably took a break to eat some lunch, and they brought this out, put it in. I made it to the second track, I believe, and this is the way I recall it, Mr. Ouija. I wasn't impressed. Creeped me out, to be honest. But it was a turnoff. I was like, it's all right, but I'm not really that interested. So skip ahead. I don't know if it was release day, if it was after the fact. Again, fuzzy details. But we skip ahead to the weekend, or just even a regular night. I started smoking early, unfortunately, and my whole family did smoke, so I had access to cigarettes, and a lot of times I would go down after everybody was asleep, smoke cigs, because that's what I did. And I had turned on the box, and lo and behold, none other than the Thuggish Ruggish Bone video comes on, and I was blown away. I was like, what is this? This is amazing. Seeing their four styles and finishing it off with Busy's verse, incredible. It definitely a game changer. It definitely changed the way that I listen to music. And I would like to say that the next day I went with a blank cassette tape. Yo, that's fire. Copy that for me. I need to be rocking with Bone Thugs and Harmony. And the rest, as they say, is history. Now, I remember moving through high school. Bone had a few, the Crossroads, moving on. Their full-length LP dropped in 1995, which we'll be celebrating 30 years of that this year. But a lot of people, whether they were serious or not, would kind of bust on me in school for listening to this. Growing up outside of Philly, a lot of people were into the Roots and, the more East Coast sound. But like I said, because I was vibing with Snoop and Dre then, and the whole West Coast sound, my friends and I, we probably predominantly listened to West Coast G-Funk artists, Warren G, Tupac, of course, we would eventually get into Biggie. We were listening to Wu-Tang at the time as well, but again, you had to kind of go by what your eyes presented you. If you read an article about a certain artist, it was not easy to really dig into and get hip to different artists or be influenced other than watching music videos on The Box or MTV or BET at the time. But I was hooked. Like I said, I would take crap for it, and was even questioned by other friends and family, people I went to school with, saying, like, you're going to be listening to Bone Thugs and Harmony when you get older. Well, here I am, a 45-year-old old man, 30 years later, still rocking Bone. This was in my Apple replay. This album, Bone, top artist of 2024. And in the past years, they've always been in the top. So, but it all started with this CD. And it was released, like I said, on June 21st, 1994. The first track on here is an intro track. East 99 is where you find me, singing me, yeah, yo, Cleveland. Good stuff. You know, going back in retrospect, maybe the style when I first started, it didn't vibe even hearing that. But now, when I hear that, it's great. Followed by Mr. Ouija, or Mr. Queegee, as it says here on the back. And then none other than Thuggish, Ruggish Bone, number 3. Like, anytime you hear, we're not against rap, we're not against rappers, but we are against those thugs, you know, you're in for a good time. The number 4 track, No Surrender, probably one of my favorites on this EP, specifically Wish's verse. Now, Wish, out of all 5 members, is the only one who's never released a solo album and only has not even less than a handful of solo songs. Number 5 song, Down For My Thang. Number 6, Creepin' On the Come Up, the title track to the album, and then finishing it out with For the Love of Money, featuring eazy-e, straight classic. There's a video for that. Number 8 is the Moe Cheese. It's the actual instrumental of For the Love of Money, and that's probably the weakest part about this album. I don't understand why they felt the need to put it on there. I would imagine back in the day, my friends, they had, when they upgraded a little bit from the boombox, they had an Iowa 3-disc CD changer with karaoke capabilities, and I would imagine we tried our hand at rapping over this instrumental beat, trying to make up our own raps. And that's, yeah, there's a story about that for a whole another day. But that to me is a weak part, because a lot of times now on greatest hits CDs and even online, sometimes those For the Love Money and this get tied together, so you kind of have to manually skip the song. So it's a weak part, but it's there, so it's part of history. Not much more I can say about this album that hasn't already been said. Happy birthday to Creepin' On the Come Up. Happy 30th. I know, a little late, but better late than never. If you're feeling the mood on this Wednesday evening as I record this, maybe sit back, crack a 40 open. I would recommend a nice 40. Old English. Pop in the CD, the physical CD, if you can and have the ability to. Sit back and rock to the Thuggish, Ruggish Bone and Bone Thugs and Harmony. Creepin' On the Come Up.